Hey guys, welcome to the Tulip Festival. I'm here with John Kohler from Growing Your Greens. We actually collaborated on a talk this year. My part of the talk was about 5 top tips to help you get started growing a new garden. What was yours?
Mine was 5 tips to take your garden to the next level, it up a notch to grow even more nutritious foods for your health.
Yeah, so we are just going to let you guys sit back and check out the video. It got some of the PowerPoint that we would also include in the video. And any Q&A parts, you can leave it in the comments below. And I'll see you guys after the talk.
Wow.
But most tests,
Welcome
the NAMA
to the
wins.
Tulip Festival,
Yeah.
everyone. You guys are
good.
in for a treat
on.
because it's like double your pleasure, double your fun with John Kohler and Wendi Phan, 2 of our favorite gardeners and YouTube stars ever. I want to introduce Wendi Phan. She's up first.
Hello, thank you for coming. Some of you may know that I make videos on gardening and mostly focusing on small space because I mainly grow food out of my patio garden. That's about 300 square feet. It's like an alleyway, yeah. So I make the best of it. This is pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. Got, one side looking down, back the other way. Got trellises and different types of planters, different plants, high calorie plants like yam and sweet potatoes, leafy greens. I focus a lot on rare foods, rare medicinal herbs and culinary herbs just because my space, I want to grow something that I can't actually buy. So I'll share how I got started and just a few basic points that help you guys to get started if you haven't ever grown anything. And then John will share with you later how to take it up like the next 10 levels. So a little bit about myself. I did not start it out growing food. I actually started growing like tulips or freesias. I got really obsessed each year about one certain flower, and that's all I grew. And then I started moving on to like cacti and succulents when I got more aware of like the environment and drought tolerant things. And then one day I somehow came across this leafy green online. Some forum was like giving these testimonials about how it was helping them with their diabetes, their cholesterol. And this was right around the time when my dad was actually diagnosed with prediabetes and the doctor started him with medications. So I was like, this is actually a really good time for him to test it out because this is actually the leafy green I grew up eating. My mom grows it and puts it in everything that she made, but my dad didn't eat her food. So I was like, we already have abundance of them. They grow so easily. Let's have him try it. So when he had it for a while and he went to take his blood test and the doctor said, you should stop your medications for diabetes. I was like, there's no proof of it actually is that, but that was like the only change that he did in his life. For his diet. And that was, by the way, if you guys are curious, this is called longevity spinach. I saw it right out there. It was like $2. Yeah, it grows really well in the warm season. And you can take it inside and keep them and then propagate them for the next growing season. So after that, I was like, when you find out that someone that you're so close to, some sort of like health challenge that happens to them, you really feel it deeply in your heart. So that was the time when I said, I'm going to start growing food. I wanted to grow medicinal herbs. I wanted to grow things to help people around me. I want them to live forever. That was what I wanted. I also did that for my dog. I was growing food for some of her food. And so that was like one of the big wow moments for me to really feel like I have to grow food. I'll share my other wow moment later, but I'll get started sharing how you can get started growing your own garden. So these are the 5 main points I'll talk about: where to grow your plants, how to improve your yield, maintaining garden health, growing vertically, which is a big thing for a small garden, and watering. So this is a section of the patio. So the first thing I'd say, if you are like in this brand new space, you're trying to set up a garden, you really want to understand the light And this may seem so like common sense, but it wasn't for me when I started, right? I was just thinking, just design it the way I like it to look. But the plants, it's actually the main focus, and you need to figure out where it gets full sun or, you know, part shade or whatever. So you have to really physically be there to mark down these things, take notes of it, because yeah, we all know that the sun rises on the east and sets in the west, but it's different when you're in a certain space. There might be microclimates, there might be a shed, your neighbor's tree might be blocking out, you know, your full sun, or you have like a 2-story house. So just take note of that and really make your space work for you. And what I noticed, especially for my space, like you're seeing, one side is full shade, unless they reach like 5 feet, like after they go past that solid wall, then they get more sun. And then the other side, they get more sun. But this garden is more compromised because half of the side of is still like facing the walls. These plants do grow a little slower, but that's why you're seeing all these seedlings that are like shoved against like one side where they get more sun. So that's pretty much how my garden is, but really to go out and understand how your garden is. And if you have say if you're setting up a space and you have a really open space and you're able to put like a planter in the middle, it's not so big of an issue in how you would arrange your plants. But for me, because everything is pushed to the side against the wall, I find that the most effective way is to grow kind of like, I picture like the sun is like a camera. Say if you're taking a group picture, you want everyone's faces to be seen. So I would place like the taller plants in the back, the shorter ones in the front, and then you kind of want to stagger them. So like, because there's like no light on that side, right, the back side. So that's how I did mine. And then you would slowly figure out year after year that what kind of plants would do well. Like I've noticed that a lot of shade plants or even like leafy greens do better in shade, or I mean, they would tolerate the shade. They'll grow better in more sun, but that's just what I have to work with. And then edible flowers and fruits, they take more sun, so I put them in the front. So this is raised bed gardening. I only recently, like the past 2 years, started actually growing raised beds because I always thought I don't have room for raised bed. I envy people with raised beds. And usually raised beds depths, it's just like my walkway is about like 18 inches. The raised bed depth is like 18 or 2 feet actually. So I just ended up customizing mine. I used their metal panels and then I just built in like the side like with wood and just made it smaller. But the like 10 inches? I would say like 14. Yeah. So I still got like another 12 inches to walk and push something through. Yeah. But I find that actually having a raised bed, whether it's like in ground or just elevated, it's still a much better space to grow food, and you actually can grow a lot more with one bed than have like 15 pots just butting against each other. Because like the space between you're really wasting, you know. And then having a bed, it's actually elevated. It's easier on your back when you're working. It's nicer. You can also grow plants that cascade over. They'll have a little bit of that growing space and not like running into everywhere, walking, stepping all over it. You can, it also holds moisture better. It's just like a bigger space, more soil, yeah. The nutrients won't deplete as quickly as containers. I still have containers, but I really try to put as much raised beds in as possible. And the soil tends to stay more loose, so it's easier to grow like those daikon radish or like carrots. Yeah, it's just so much nicer. And for pests and things, it's just less chance for like slugs and snails. Strawberry is really nice to have them kind of hang over that, yeah. And then you can even put trellis in the back and grow, maybe, depends on the space you have, I guess. For me, it's like bitter melon or cucumbers are okay to trellis in the back. And I have about 3, yeah, I try to squeeze like 3 rows. And in the middle, I got some leafy greens and some like dwarf varieties of sunflowers. And I really like the colorful plants, especially the Swiss chards. They're hardy. They take full sun well, but they also do quite well in the shade. And those beautiful colors just really brightens up the small space. And the insulation, it just really helps to extend the life, just helps you kind of push those plants to grow a little longer, you know, and they can start off a little earlier and last a little longer. Just better insulation in the soil. So the next one I talked about how to increase yield or help to better, I guess, your yield if you have issues with that, or going out to hand pollinate. If you love doing that, that's no problem, but it's just definitely better when you have like these free workers, when you welcome the wildlife and pollinators into your garden. And these are the fruits that, the red curry, yeah, squashes, different types of, I find cherry tomatoes do better in small space, and they're also more abundant. The darker color ones, not just that they're good for your health, and John will touch more on why you should be growing those, but not only that they look beautiful, but they're so good for you, and they do better in the shade. Like black cherry, chocolate cherry, is that what they're called? Those cherry tomatoes, they grow so well. I think I would pick like 1 to 2 5-gallon buckets like a week. I didn't even know what to do with them. Yeah, it was just one plant. Then they got zucchinis that take up a lot of room. So I try to plant things that take up a lot of room. I just maybe pick like a couple of those to fit in, and then the rest is like a lot more leafy greens. And then if you keep pruning them to eat, that's not really an issue. Yeah, so I really love medicinal herbs and culinary herbs that really help to, make your dishes pop, and you can't even buy these sort of flavors, outside if you're not growing your own. And you get so much more selection when you're growing them from seed. And eggplants actually don't grow very big, so they're tasty, they do really well in the heat. One of the nicer ones to grow in a small garden. Another thing I like to invite is flowers. They not only beautify your space, but they invite the pollinators to help do the work for you to give you better success. It's a bit of a handful to try to think and remember what kind of flowers brings what type of pollinators. So I'd say the general rule is just to grow a little bit of everything, a little bit of whatever you enjoy. The different colors, the different shapes, the different size, different heights would bring in different types of pollinators. But for example, like bumblebees and butterflies really seem to lean, like they really go towards like those ones with a landing pad, kind of like the ones on the left, the pink yarrow. There's different colors of those, but I'm always seeing those, bumblebees and the butterflies hovering around them, or like this is a salvia and the purple picture with the tubular flowers. A lot of salvias, honeysuckles, fuchsias. Fuchsia, actually they do well in the shade, these beautiful flowers, but the little berries are actually quite tasty if you wait for them to be ripe. And the hummingbirds go nuts all over these sort of tubular, trumpet, bell-shaped kind of flowers. A lot of salvias come in really beautiful, different types of fragrance too, that you can grow for herbs for yourself with the flowers that, let the pollinators have them. And you can probably eat some of that. And then the edible flowers. Surprisingly, zinnias are actually edible. Yeah, and they come in different shapes, sizes, and colors. And all the deep purples and just the colors, the vibrance of the flowers, and on top of the being able to offer to pollinators, we can have it too, and they're really good for us. Or add in some sort of fragrant flowers. They're really easy, like lavender is like one of those you plant it and you forget about it because they're drought tolerant, but the bees go nuts over them. Like I've visited lavender farms, but they tell you if you're allergic to bees, don't bring them. And they don't let you bring pets too, because they're like, dogs can be allergic to them. So they really just plant a few things that are just maybe a sun dry, really poor soil sort of spots for stuff like that. It can really also benefit yourself, your mood, your environment, the pollinators. And milkweed. Milkweed, yeah, the butterflies, especially the monarchs, the orange butterflies, they really enjoy the flowers, and then the little caterpillars, they actually feed off the leaves. So you can add something like that, and you'll see butterflies all around your garden every time you're walking out there. Kind of like a fairy tale ad. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about, after you've put, your planter in place and you put in all the plants that you want, garden is a process, it's a lifestyle, that you don't just put in the work and mark check and be gone, It can take care of itself, but if you want to maintain it, especially if you're growing like fruits, leafy greens is a little easier. But if you're growing flowers or they're pushing for a lot of fruits and all, you really want to nourish them. You want to nourish the plants, the soil, so that they can uptake the nutrients. I do a lot of different things with mine, but just to keep it simple, and this is actually something that I'm able to do on a regular basis because it's simple. It's basically like a kelp seaweed or like a liquid solution or worm casting teas that you basically dilute it in water. And I do it like bi-weekly, depends on your schedule, bi-weekly, monthly, but mid-season is probably the most important part. Like at least I say the bare minimum is to do that much, especially when the plants are starting to really push out those flowers, those fruits. You want to help them with, it's kind of like when we can't just eat one meal and keep going on our day, we have to replenish. So this is the same for the plants. And so for mid-season, definitely that's a really crucial point. And that's also a really good time when you want to add in a little more nutrients, maybe even like fertilizer, like granules or actual worm castings or compost that you buy or make. You can just top it off in your soil and just kind of scratch on the top and kind of just add the nutrients on the top. So that's kind of like a thing I do maybe like once or twice through the growing season. It doesn't hurt to do more of, especially if it's like worm castings, but it's just about like how much can you actually do based on your own lifestyle. The thing I do really like about worm casting is not only that it has like these micronutrients, but trace minerals or microbes, and all depends on how the worm casting is made. But worm casting is really great because it won't burn your plants. So especially for beginners, there's no worries except for like you're kind of wasting if you're paying for it. It's just like your cost, but other than that, it's not going to burn your plants. It would only benefit your plants. So this is the one I use the most of. It's VermisTerra. It's just so simple. The tea has also been fermented. So it's not more like a soil conditioner, but I also use like a liquid fertilizer. So on a regular basis, I like using liquids just because it's easier for me. I just mix it with water and just water in. You can also spray them on the leaves and they can also uptake that way. And yeah, I just do like a root drench or just spraying on the leaves with a lot of things. Vertical gardening. I'm obsessed with this. When I started growing vertically, I didn't even know how to use like a power drill. I think I had it on like backwards trying to put a screw in. I'm like, why isn't this working? I saw YouTube and they just like drill it in, but apparently they didn't tell you the step one is to make sure to like put the button on the right, place. So I was like, what am I gonna do? My loofahs are growing big. I need something to put it together. And of course you can just use bamboos or stakes or whatever you find and just like zip tie them or strings, anything just to help it, but it's not very stable. So I came across something that really worked were like these garden clipping things. They're called seed bites, and you just snap them in place and they're really sturdy. The only thing is I think they work mostly well on like garden stakes, so they're kind of like customized made for that. Yeah, but there's like so much advantage to growing vertically. First of all, in my small space, I see like the sky is the limit if you're growing upwards. So if you're taking it wide, there's just, taking up more room. And also it can create like a nice like central divider, like a panel to maybe if you have a bigger space than me, you can have growing something behind it, you're creating shade for it. It also would deter a lot of, well, not deter it, it helps to reduce a lot of like pests or like fungal issues. Say if you're growing something that would trail on the ground, you would step all over it, or it's just poor circulation. It'll create a lot of like mildew, powdery mildew issues. So having it propping up, you would avoid it from those kind of issues, but also the plants from snapping, like your sugar snap peas, things like that. They just snap so easily. And so I like to build something for anything that kind of climbs or that's a little linky and not very stable. I just like to pin them up to on the trellis. And just improving that circulation and having that everything just easier access for the pollinators to see everything. Kind of like, I guess, for us, when we have our place a little more organized, it's easier to spot for stuff. So you'll have a higher chance for more yield. One of my favorite easy ways to trellis, in fact I see this going around like a lot of Southeast Asia farms, even home gardens use, is just bamboo sticks, especially if you grow your own or you got friends, someone that has a bunch of them. And they do like this crisscross, like this X thing, and it's just all in a row. And they grow like angled loofahs, beans, some sort of like gourds, cucumbers, bitter melons, like all kinds of greens, and it just creates this really beautiful centerpiece. And it's just like, it's so nice. And it's so easy to take apart. It doesn't cost you anything, especially if you grow them. And all they did was just like strip out these old t-shirts, like little strips of them like strings, and tie them together. And they're using it for like years. It's super, easy to do. So lightweight.
Is that for the ground or for the raised beds or both?
In ground. They do that in the ground. Yeah. But you can do it on the raised bed, but make sure you probably have to stake them in deeper. You got a lot more loose soil. It probably won't be as stable. Yeah. But as your plants grow up, I think they would also kind of latch onto it and pull themselves. I think it'll be fine unless you have really high winds. Yeah.
What did you call that right there?
Oh, these ones are called seed bites. They're the little orange snap-on. Yeah.
Like you use them for tomatoes or something?
Yeah, like oh no, not that clamp thing. No, these ones specifically are made for you to clamp onto things, anything that fits basically. Yeah, but I've had them on for like, they're pretty sturdy for years, and I don't take things apart. I mean, I just grow, tomatoes in it, loofahs in the summer, chayotes in the cooler season. So this is out of someone's garden, just backyard in Southern California. The gardener around here was like, I think he's like going on 86 years old. He's walking around and, sowing and tilling the soil twice a year. Sugar cane in the background. Have like, these are bitter melons that are growing on this. And then this one, he's got like a few different ones growing, and these are beans. Are really tasty, stringless beans, almost like the dragon, what is that called? The tongue, dragon tongue. But this one's actually a climber, and it's green. It looks like regular green beans, but they're really tasty. So they do really well on these type of setups. So that's like a really simple way to do it. And then another one, if you want to look for something that's more durable for longevity, but also you can take it apart and redesign it easily. Growing loofahs. So surprised that this year my loofahs made it through winter. I started, the only change I did was adding that VermisTerra worm tea. Can't think of other things I did, but it was a shock because it continued to grow through winter, and I think it's about like 2.5 feet long, my loofahs. They're finally drying. Takes forever because it's so big. So these are the seed bites. That's a close-up of them. I started building things, I think it's called maker pipe. I think that's what it's called. So what they do is those EMT conduits, when you go to like the hardware stores at the electrical section, they have these like metal tubings that they make connectors for. And they're as easy as just putting the screws in, nuts and bolts. I don't even need a drill. And they have a really hard connection that would help me build a frame. And then on top of the frame, I use these sort of like seed bites to make this grid style for the gourds to grow on top. Or you can just, tie down your bamboos or stakes that you find anywhere, branches. But it creates a really solid, sturdy frame. And those are little, I had like a mice issue. So that's what I resolved to, is to really protect my gourds afterward. Yeah, they set. I just cut out water bottles and melt a bunch of holes so like they wouldn't cause like mildew and such. Yeah. So that's how they grew, and then slowly upgraded to like a bigger bottle, and then I had some sort of netting thing around them and raised them that way. Yeah. But here's another trellis. It's made with those maker pipe. It's, so the EMT conduit. And this one is like the lower and lean method, kind of like when you're growing, like industrial conventional, when they're growing industrial farms, they grow like cucumbers or tomatoes, right? You guide one plant, like the leading stem up, and you just keep, once the plant grows all the way to the top, you lower it down and you move it over kind of like a conveyor belt, and it kind of rotates. So this is how it was built for tomatoes, but last year I actually grew some purple yam on it. And yeah, so I sort of just kind of leaned it, and then it just kind of went really crazy after this picture. Yeah, but it did really well because anything, like I said before, that goes past the wall would get full sun. So I have to really like train everything up. Finally, watering. I've had a lot of issues with watering in the past. I've killed a lot of plants just from either over or under watering. It's kind of hard to know sometimes, like because I think the biggest issue is like if you look at the top and if you're not mulching, right, the top part kind of gets dried, and so you start putting like a lot of water. You're like, oh no, it's too dry, and then you end up drowning your plants. So as always, the best method is like everyone tells you, really have to stick your finger in, like really feel if there's anything that comes out with it. You can really feel like the first 2.5 inches if you do need to water or not. And the best time to water is definitely early in the morning or evening, but the first best choice is morning, because when it gets close to the nighttime, it's hard for the water to evaporate, especially if you're just kind of hosing everywhere and it touches the leaves and it causes like fungal issues and such. So yeah, before I put in water irrigations, I was literally hand watering like on the base of the plants. It's effective, but it was not efficient. Yeah. That's when I started kind of investing my time and effort to put irrigations out. I'm still not done, but it started to make me realize how much time I was taking. Like I enjoy paying more attention to my plants. You know, that's the benefit of growing in a small space, is that especially when you're starting out, you don't feel as overwhelmed with a small space and having too many plants, and you can pay more attention to them. But after I put in the drip irrigation, I started realizing I could be doing a lot more things. You know, a lot more things needs to be done in the garden. So I didn't have to spend those hours, especially if it's like a really hot days. I have to go out there twice a day or even 3 times a day to water. It was taking up like hours out of the day. So when, you know, irrigations, you can even set up like Wi-Fi style that they can do it for you whenever you're away. You can control it when you're wherever you're at. And then another one I liked is this is like a deep root style water irrigation. So you just dig a hole, and so the water slowly drips down. It's kind of like when they say it really helps even with like a plastic, a water bottle, you put it, and it's just like drop by drop throughout the day. Like it doesn't even need much, but it's that steadiness of it and just that drop, and really allowing the roots to grow deeper. It really encourages deeper root growth. So your plants would be more stable, won't be as sensitive to the temperatures that change throughout the day. And it's just like a lot less prone to diseases, things when you're not getting like the leaves and everything on top wet. You have to really try out and see how well it works, like how often you need to water and how much water that's required in your garden. It's hard to say. I'm from California. I used to say we have drought, but we had a lot of rain this year. So yeah, it helped out. And yeah, so those are pretty much it. And I wanted to share my second wow moment with you. So the second time was I was making food for my dog for a while and was like, keeping up with her medical records and all that. And then, but all of a sudden she got really weak. So when we went to the doctor, the specialist and the hospital, they said there was nothing they could do for her. And they told her I should take her home, enjoy the day, maybe call someone and set her free. Yeah, and like that, they were thinking I had to be prepared that her heart would probably stop at any time the day that I would bring her back. Yeah, so I was trying to be prepared for that. But there was something in my mind that I thought I haven't done at all yet. And I don't know, it was just like a knowing, I guess. I'm like, well, I've been growing these vegetables for a while, and I have been adding them to her food, but what if I concentrated them and fed her more of that, and of course continuing to give her her other foods and her herbals, right? Maybe we can hold out until we find the right doctor that would come on and help us. So I started juicing a lot of like certain types of leafy greens that was like helping like for her kidneys and to help push her blood pressure because it was like a kidney issue. Yeah, and surprisingly, she was like doing better. And I'm like, okay, we gotta hold out until we find this vet. And we finally were lucky enough to find this vet. And he was like this pretty like high up there in the vet, like integrative vet in the US. And he told me that for his 34 years of practice, he really believes that it was those greens that were helping. Like if I didn't grow a garden, I would not have been prepared for this moment. So, you know how people ask you, when's the best time to do something? When's the best time to grow a garden? My answer yesterday could not be more true than this. So I hope this helps, and I hope this will get you guys started if you've never grown anything. Thank you. And we got John to up your garden, level of your garden. Thank you.
You got one more.
Oh, what?
One more.
Oh, and that is Lotus, my dog. And these are the foods that I prepped from the garden. Thank you. Oh, that's her 15-year-old, her 15th birthday, and I made her like a raw dried fruit cake with almond nuts and stuff because they can eat almonds but not cashews so much. So.
And how much longer did she live after the doctor told you?
6 months more than they were expecting a day. When she was walking around, people like went back to do her regular like blood work and stuff. Everyone was just like, it was like this miracle. Like she came back from the grave.
That's awesome.
Get her to drink.
Honestly.
Yes, honestly, the first week I was giving her by syringe. I juiced it. I did it with coconut water, so it's sweet that enough that they would like it. And regularly, I would make my green smoothies, and I would just use that to hydrate her dry foods. And then whatever like edible flowers I was growing, she gets a dose of most things I eat, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
You're
asking.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now let's have John.
All right, thank you, Wendy.
Oh.
That's my presentation. Nope, the clicker. Which button was it?
Oh, forward.
That one, all right. That one. My name is John Kohler, and I have a YouTube channel called Growing Your Greens on YouTube. How many people have watched me before? All right, cool. A number of you guys have, and I know a lot of you guys haven't, so that's wonderful. And you know, I want to thank Wendy for her presentation. I couldn't have done a better job for beginners because I'm kind of like up in the atmosphere, like beginners. I've done all that stuff. So I'm going to take you guys to the next level. But meanwhile, you know, with Wendy, I've been to her place. You know, I made a really good video on my YouTube channel where I basically hold my hands out this wide. And like, that's literally how wide her alley is. She is not joking. And I have a good video where I show how wide it is and go over everything. Also, she doesn't give herself enough credit, like her loofahs, although, you know, they're really long. And I have a video where we harvest her loofahs, a special variety from Asia. And they're like literally 4 feet long. And when they're 4 feet long, normally you would use loofahs to like rub on your body and like clean you like a sponge. But these loofahs she had were so soft and tender you could still eat them like a cucumber when they're 4 feet long. So it's all in the genetics. And I have a video on this as well, where we also even juice a 4 foot long cucumber and make straight loofah juice, and we get to drink it amongst ourselves. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel for her loofah and tour video. And we've done a lot of collaboration videos in the past. Now, the other thing I want to say is that I've been making videos on YouTube for over 12 years now, and I basically make all my content for free. I don't have any kind of VIP subscription. It's really important for me to share the information with you guys out there that I've learned, to be able to pass on the knowledge, because I've spent lots of time, you know, after college, which I did go to school for marketing for, to learn about gardening, and then also to be able to share the information, because I visit so many places and learn so many things. And my presentation is a little longer than the time I have left, so I'm going to try to just blast through it. I'll be here, and Wendy will be here afterwards to take some questions if there's time. So if you have a question, please hold it to the end. Yeah, so I make a lot of videos and content for free just to get it up there for people, and I learn a lot of things. And, you know, let's see, I was going to say, so I guess while they get my presentation up, you know, I really want to give you guys my 5 tips to take your garden to the next level. Wendy should have asked, how many people in here have never gardened before? So everybody's gardened before, amazing. So she gave you some good tips you could even still use. And then everybody already in here is already gardening then, obviously. Everybody, all right, great. So that's what my talk is focused on today, to take your garden to the next level on, you know, what many people may consider some unconventional methods. But to me, they're just normal, because this is like the area I live in and the world I live in. You know, I visit many different, you know, worm farms and companies that make products, and I interview expert pro growers. I have a lot of friends that grow hemp and cannabis, and some of those growers really do the best things to, you know, get the highest whatever they want to get. But like the thing is, you could learn a lot from them to get the best quality vegetables that you can't buy, that money can't buy.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
You got it.
So we got it. So this is 5 tips for elevating your existing garden to improve your health. And so I really want to get into that. The reason why I got into gardening is actually because of my health, like specifically. When I was in my 20s after college, I almost lost my life due to spinal meningitis. And that caused me to like think that, hey, maybe the diet I was eating, which is mostly a standard American diet, although I read my ingredient labels and tried to not eat red meat and tried to eat healthy like so many people still do today, I still was stricken with this disease. I was told I had a compromised complement immune deficiency. Long story short, I made it out of the hospital, but while I was in the hospital, the doctor said I might not make it out alive. And that's not a fun place to be at any age, but especially when I was so young. So at that point, really, I thought when I was in the hospital, like, hey, I might not get out of here. What is the most important thing? And is the most important thing all this money? Because you're supposed to go out and make $1 million and all this stuff, and that's what's supposed to be really important. And I'm like, even if I have $1 million, I couldn't write the check to Mr. Doctor. $1 million not valid unless John walks out of here. Millionaires, billionaires, quadrillionaires that I don't know lose their lives every day because they're failing health, because maybe they're really good at making money, but they're not good at taking care of their health. And of course, with all the advertising and marketing for all the junk food, the processed food, and like basically most of the grocery stores junk food in my opinion, except for the outer areas of the produce, maybe their real meats and whatnot, is healthy for you. So I really had to do some dietary changes and find out what is the healthiest food to eat. I found basically a whole food plant-based diet, which was right for me. I'm not going to say it's right for everybody, but I do believe that everybody should incorporate more fresh, whole fruits and vegetables and other whole foods that are real, that don't need an ingredient label. And that's what I will say. And then, you know, along my journey about 10 years in, one of my mottos is that I always try to do this motto called CANI, C-A-N-I. It stands for constant and never-ending improvement. So I'm doing something today, tomorrow I'm going to try to do it just a little bit better. And so I've been all on this journey of my whole dietary shift to like, how can I make my diet better? And then about 10 years in, I was like, how can I make my diet better? I'm already shopping at farmers markets. I get the stuff locally and all this stuff. I was like, I could grow my own. And that took me to the next level. And then, so that's why I teach what I teach. It's like kind of, I would call it advanced stuff that most people may not care about. But I'm really concerned about, you know, getting the most out of the food I grow, the most nutrients, phytonutrients, having the most yield, and have it to be able to be done easily. So getting to the next, so why am I giving this talk? So this talk stems from the fact that I used to live in Northern California, where it's very easy to grow. You can see my Northern California garden with the wooden raised beds. That's where I started off with. And I literally would plant anything, and there's good soil yards out there and good amendments. I just basically put the soil in, put the plants in, put the seeds in, and they would grow, and they'd just grow monstrous, and I'd get so much yield and all this stuff I didn't know what to do with. Then, unfortunately, I moved to Las Vegas, and this is a picture in Vegas. The other one, the green one, that's actually my Vegas garden in September. And how many of you guys have ever been to Vegas? Well, a bunch of you guys. So if you guys have been to Vegas in the summer, you know for basically some of June, basically all of July and all of August, it's over 100 degrees a day. It's really hot. And, you know, the plants have to deal with that heat every single day. But this is my garden in September. It's just like overblowing with greenery. Now, it didn't look like that when I started growing there. It looked like the desert, and my plants would not make it. So over all these 10 years I've lived there, I had to like learn the specific techniques to make them produce and keep them healthy so that I could have healthy food. So we get over 83 days of 100+ degree weather and low humidity, which is critical, because with the low humidity, as Wendi said, when you water, you got to check 2 inches down to see if it's dry or not. 2 inches down, if the weather is 100, the ground temperature is like 120. You can't take your dog out for a walk and let them walk across the asphalt when it's 100 degrees out, because they're going to burn their little baby paws, right? So it's really hot there, and nonetheless, like, things dry out very quickly. So I've had to come up with a lot of techniques so that I can successfully grow there. And, you know, we all know that the climate is getting a little bit more, is changing. For a lot of people, it's getting warmer. And, you know, I think that's where the benefit of me living in Vegas, growing it over 100 degrees, you're like, oh, we got a 100-degree day, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know how many days you guys get it out here. But it's coming more and more, so it's good to be, the more, the more you make your plants resistant or and tolerant, the healthier they're going to be, so that they could survive these little, inclement weathers. And I have to make them survive 83 days of 100+ weather. So that's what we're going to get into today. That's why I'm giving a talk. So here's the 5 tips. You guys can leave after I say this, but like I go really into each one. So number 1 is grow more nutritious crops. Number 2 is add beneficial microbes. Number 3 is add trace minerals. Number 4 is foliar feed your plants. And I say foliar wrong, so I had a speech therapist and it didn't really work. And then the number 5 is pay time and attention to your plants like on a daily basis. Now these may seem kind of basic. Some of them you may have never heard before, and some of them I'm gonna have a different take on it. So you definitely want to stay tuned. So the first one is grow more nutritious crops. I credit this photo for Baker Creek, the amazing photographers here. This is actually off their website. And for me, because I got into this for nutrition, I understand that every plant or every food you eat is a whole host of different vitamins and minerals. And especially in the case of plants, unlike animals, they also contain high amounts of phytonutrients and fiber. These are the plant nutrients that the plant makes. And what these phytonutrients do for us is amazing, which I'll talk about in a minute. But more importantly, these phytonutrients in the plants also protect themselves. So for example, we know that people that have a darker complexion skin don't burn as easy as somebody that's nice and pale, right? And the plants are the same. Like if you grow something white, it's more likely to get burned than if you grow something that's black, right? So like grow some black tomatoes, they're going to be more sun resistant. Also, when you grow tomatoes that are darker, they have greater, deeper pigments, or also called anthocyanins, that also could have amazing health benefits for us. So that's why it's very important to grow the rainbow. And a lot of people grow the same crops year after year because like, hey, I grow early girls, I love the flavor, I love the taste, and I grow, whatever, maybe 80 to 100% of early girls. You get the same exact seeds or starts every year because they perform well. I really want to encourage you guys to go outside the box and at least plant a percentage, 20 to 30% of new varieties, especially colorful, deep pigmented varieties that will not only be more resilient to climatic changes, but also be healthier for you to eat, okay? And luckily today we are actually at Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. And so what crops do you choose for nutrition? So I want you to choose a variety of fruits and vegetables. More importantly, choose ones you don't normally eat or grow. Like, oh, I never grow eggplants because I hate the flavor. Well, you know what? Living in Vegas, I had to learn to love eggplants because eggplants perform significantly better than tomatoes because they love the heat. So now it's like I plant tons of eggplants and just a few tomatoes because they're a lot more difficult to manage, okay? And then also I want you guys to choose deeply colored plants to eat, which I discussed, and as Wendi said, she fed her dog leafy greens. Leafy greens are the most powerhouse foods on the entire planet, and unfortunately, most people think leafy greens is eaten like a iceberg lettuce salad that has 0 color, next to no nutrition. I mean, it's still better than a lot of the junk food, but nonetheless, the leafy greens are so nutritious. I was just talking to Jer about he's got some cool red kamatsuna that I got really excited about. Unfortunately, it's not going to be available until next year. But so. People say leafy greens, but I say leafy red. So I have a video on my channel why the power of purple and why it's so important to grow and eat purple colored foods because there are so many health benefits. Let's go on. This is why choosing a different crop could make a significant difference in your health. Of course, also we're saying that these colorful plants also are more, resilient to some stressors because that's why they have these pigments, not for our benefit when we eat them, but for their benefit so that they can be more tolerant of the sun and whatnot. So comparing the polyphenol content, that's the top bars, the black bars and the white bars, there's 15 times more polyphenols in red coral lettuce versus iceberg or butterhead. You can see the red coral just is like off the chart in these polyphenols, which, you could Google polyphenols and health benefits, and you'll just come up with a list of all kinds of things. And then just by choosing purple carrots, which are my favorite colored carrots, instead of orange, and I mean, everybody thinks, you think carrot, you think orange. No, I think purple, man. Purple, like, they kick butt. It's 4 times more flavonoids, purple versus orange carrots. And also the interesting thing about this slide and this is all in published studies. They check the outer tissue and the inner tissue, and the outer tissue is actually, in some cases, more nutritious than the inner tissue, so don't peel your carrots before you eat them. You know, they always say there's a lot of nutrition in the skin or on or near the skin, and it's actually true. So, I mean, if you grew them yourself, just wash them off. Maybe if you eat some dirt, and it's organic dirt from your garden, it's probably good. Unless you're putting manure out, then definitely better wash it good. All right. So these are some of my favorite vegetables that they offer here at Baker Creek. I credit the photo, of course, to all the Baker Creek photographers that are amazing. You know, you can see the deep, rich black carrots. Instead of just growing standard green dandelions, you could grow red dandelions that have the nice red pigment in there. I planted some of those dandelions in my garden. They just keep growing year after year. Now they're kind of getting long and scraggly, and they go to seed. Then you got them up all over, so you just got to plant them once. Of course, black cherry tomatoes that Wendi said she gets buckets from. And then things like the scarlet kale, the red Brunswick onion, even the little fingers eggplant. Now, here's the secret with eggplant. I love the little baby small eggplants instead of the big large eggplants that you normally see in the store. Just like a cherry tomato or a big tomato, you get a lot more small ones than big ones, and they're I find them a lot more tender and easier to eat, and they cook a lot faster because they're a lot smaller. All right? So I want you to take these two considerations when selecting crops that you're going to choose to purchase. I want you to consider the phytonutrients or the protective health benefits that we could have that are conferred because of the nutrients in the plants, such as the flavonoids, polyphenols, anthocyanins, and others. And the simple way to do that is to grow the rainbow of colors and try to always default to like the purples or the reds. You know, if like something isn't green or purple or red, you know, like the lettuce or the leafy greens, always try to get the red color. Not only will it add color to your garden, which makes it look cool, add significant amounts of nutrition. Now, the other thing that's new for me is I want you to consider foods and how they affect our microbiome. People always talk about the microbiome or the soil rhizosphere here, but I got a microbiome test on my gut to see, you know, what kind of bacteria and microbes I got in my gut. And, you know, it showed me that I needed to grow sunchokes and eat sunchokes regularly, which I have been growing for years, and I started increasing and eating more of them because of it. How many people grow sunchokes? I mean, you guys got to grow sunchokes. I mean, you guys that grow sunchokes probably say, they shouldn't grow sunchokes, they take over. But that's a good thing because, you know, you're going to always have food, and definitely don't put it in a raised bed because you won't ever get them all. But like, just plant them off in the North 40 where you don't really care, and they're just leave them alone, and they're here before the white man came, the Native Americans were eating them. And they're going to feed your gut microbiome because of the inulin and the fructooligosaccharides, plus they are perennial. So you could just plant them literally once, and they should come back year after year here. Anyways, moving on. The number 2 thing is I want you guys to add the beneficial microbes. That's so important. I mean, people talk about like just adding fertilizer, but you know, I talked about, I got a microbiome test for my gut, and actually our microbiome or the bacteria and fungi and different creatures in our gut help us digest our food. They make up 70 to 80% of our immune system. But also, more importantly, the bacteria and the microbes in the soil make the whole food web soil system work. And that's what this picture is. You can see the tree at the top, then you can see the organic matter, and then you can see below that there's like fungi and bacteria, then there's different protozoa and arthropods and nematodes and mites, and then the earthworms. And so basically how that works is like the food chain. So if you're in the ocean, right, the small fish eat like little algae, the bigger fish eat the smaller fish, and then like sharks and things eat the bigger fish, and then bigger things eat the sharks, and then basically just like a circle, right? So this is the food chain of the soil, and I mean, many people may know this already, but some people don't. And the thing is, most gardeners just add chemical fertilizers like Miracle-Gro that subvert the whole food soil web to just feed the plants directly water-soluble nutrients, which I am not a fan of. Of course, you know, I'm not going to, if people want to do that, that's what they want to do, but I'm going to teach you guys what I do to grow higher quality food, because when you subvert that whole system, the plant does not really have to, the plant doesn't have to send exudates down to the roots to basically cause it to make nutrients and get more bacteria that then allows it to uptake more nutrients and then actually cause it to make more polyphenols. And there's totally studies on this, that if you know, conventional versus organic, generally, not always, the organic will have higher levels of these plant compounds that are health protective for us, okay? And then some gardeners may do like the top of the food soil web, which is like add compost, and that's like at the top, which is great because compost is organic matter. It does have bacteria and fungi and different other creatures in there, which will help kickstart the program. But I want you guys to ramp up that program so it's firing on all 8 cylinders instead of 7 cylinders, you know, because you're just adding, or 6 cylinders or less if you're just adding the compost. Okay, so go to the next level and support your microbes. So I'm going to show you how the easy way to do that. And that's to brew and apply compost tea. When I talk about compost tea, I'll talk about aerated compost tea. So we're aerating it. And it's an easy way to add a host of beneficial microbes into your garden. Of course, other ways you could add microbes are like you could get microbe powders, which would get really expensive. And of course, adding things like compost and worm castings will also add microbes in your garden, but just not as, in my opinion, effectively. You know, especially if you get some good quality worm castings, and that's the other thing I really want to talk about. Not all worm castings or compost are created equal. That's huge. Like people, oh, I just get the compost at Home Depot. That stuff is garbage. Like, support your local, you know, compost facility. Make your own compost. It's way better than the garbage they're selling you, because the whole industry is basically just taking waste material that they can't sell. They compost it, then they can put it in a bag and then put a fancy label on it and sell for a ton of money. So you could make a lot better. And then, of course, the worm casting, same thing. You know, there's a guy, Uncle Poppy's worm casting farm. I visited his farm last year and made a video sharing how he makes his worm castings that he's selling here, that's locally made here. I mean, that's a lot more biologically active than something you're buying at your local feed store that says worm castings in a bag, even though it might cost a lot less money, right? So we're really, the compost and castings for me is, aside from the organic matter, it's all about the biology in there, and there's not a lot of biology of things sitting in a bag for too long. And the compost tea basically takes the biology and like makes it like times 100. So it really, you know, increases the effectiveness of the compost or the castings you're using, especially if it's quite expensive. So what compost tea do you use? Well, I buy a pre-made compost tea. It's pre-mixed with premium ingredients. It's called Boogie Brew compost tea. I mean, Josh at Boogie Brew has done all the work. He's taken all the best ingredients and put it in a bag, and then I just get to brew it. He uses like at least 10 different things in there. You don't have to make anything that complex. You don't have to spend any money to buy this kind of thing. You could just make a workhorse compost tea recipe, which I have listed here. It's simply 1 cup of active worm castings, very important. You want a good quality worm castings. Hopefully you made it yourself. You get it from a local guy that just harvested it fresh. You use 1 cup of wood chip rich compost. So how do you make wood chip rich compost? That's basically, you get a pile of wood chips, you let it sit there for 3 years, you don't do anything to it. In 3 years, at the bottom will be wood chip rich compost. That's really fungally dominated versus bacterial dominated, which is how all the fast turn compost that you may be making in a pile that's done in 90 or 120 days, or on big agriculture lots, they could do compost in 30 days, right? That's a bacteria compost, and that's what most gardeners use, which is unfortunate. And I think the real big benefit is the wood chip compost. Now, if you can't let wood chips sit and decay for a couple, 3 years, then you can just use a leaf compost. So just basically pile up leaves at the end of the fall, collect them, leave them in a pile, and let them just degrade over the whole winter, and then use that stuff, because that stuff's like has a lot more fungi than just a standard heat pile. Okay, and then you need 1 cup of that, and then if you're just going to do vermi tea, which is basically VermiCompost tea, which is basically worm castings, you could just use 2 cups of castings only instead of 1 and 1. So for some of you guys, you can't get wood chip rich compost, just use straight worm castings. You're going to add some sugars, which will feed the bacteria and the microbes, 1/2 cup of sucanat or molasses, and then you could optionally add in 2 tablespoons of kelp extract or 1/4 cup of kelp meal and 2 tablespoons of any rock dust, which is basically pulverized rocks. So if you guys drove in the dirt road today, we're breathing the rock dust as it's flying up from the car in front of you. But yeah, I was like, if they sift out that rock dust, people would drive on it, it would be big rocks, they wouldn't have no dust, and then they could use that for agriculture. That'd be a lot better. But anyway, that's how my mind thinks. Anyways, and you also want to add some black soldier fly larva frass or insect frass, which is basically mealworm frass, at 18 hours of 1 cup. You don't want to add that at the beginning, but at the end, because that'll cause all the biology to like literally bloom and even go more crazy. And then you want to brew it for 24 to 48 hours aerated with a nice large pump to get a lot of air in there. And you want to apply it immediately. Once you make it, don't let it sit. I know Wendi uses like maybe bottled products. She doesn't make it, and that's a whole different thing. But this is the kind I recommend, and this is what I use. And then some people say, John, compost tea, it doesn't work. So then I look up studies. I don't know about you guys, but for fun, I look up studies. But does compost tea work? So this is published in March 2020 in Agronomy Journal. Spraying agro-industrial compost tea on baby spinach crops, evaluation of yield, plant quality, and soil health in field experiments. You can see the chart there, or the graph. The control, which is the light colors, and then the compost tea, or the compost tea with a trichoderma fungi, basically. And it says the spinach yield was significantly higher in both compost tea treatments than the control. So by using compost tea, you could up your yields. And then by how much? The compost tea plus trichoderma treatment showed an average 51% yield, more yield than the control. So literally does this by spraying out this compost tea stuff. You could have twice as much as food. Then you're going to be in real trouble because you guys probably already have a lot of problems processing the food you grow as it is, because I know I do. Number 3 is add trace minerals to your garden. The USDA has been basically tracking this, and the soil are getting devoid of minerals. And why? Because we've been farming all these years, and we've been taking minerals off in the forms of crops, and we've never been putting it back. So think when there's a coal mine, they go to the coal mine, they strip out all the coal, and then they basically have a dead zone that like nobody wants to move into because it's all toxic. So we're doing that to the soil too. So I say add rock powders and rock dust, usually basalt dust, adds up to 70 trace minerals, or you could add ocean minerals, adds up to 90 trace minerals. How to add rock dust, you basically buy a thing like azomite, which is what I do, 10 pounds per 100 square feet mixed into soils. And then does rock dust work? Here's a published study we won't get into because I don't have time. And then the 4th thing is foliar feed your plants. And why? Because, if your soil is not as good as it could, the roots are not absorbing all the nutrients as it could. If you foliar feed, the plant absorbs it directly through the stomata, and you see an instant result within 48 hours. And I never really believed in foliar feeding because when I lived in California, I didn't have to do that. But in Vegas, I learned from a local guy named Bernie that, his vegetables always look so huge. And I'm like, why is your vegetable so huge? He's like, I foliar feed every single week. And then I started doing it, and my yields significantly improved. I mean, this is in stress conditions. What if you guys do it in non-stress conditions? Your yields will also improve. So this is what I use. I use Dr. Earth's Premium Concentrate. It's basically composted plant materials, fruits and vegetables. I use the Pure Protein, which is my favorite, and then also I use a liquid kelp. And I hose it, I mix it together in a chameleon sprayer and then spray it out, diluted with water every other week, or at least minimally once a month. During the growing season, and the alternate week that I'm not doing the foliar, I'm doing the compost teas. All right, and then does fish hydrolysate work? And basically there's a 40% increase at the right dosage. Very important. More is not always better in gardening. And then the 4th thing is I think this is the last. Give time and attention to your plants. Walk your garden every single day. Because I live in Las Vegas, it's 100 degrees every day. Like if the soil dries out too much, the plants dehydrate. And why is this? Well, can we load up on water in the morning and then not drink water the rest of the day? I mean, I'm feeling thirsty right now. I need to go and drink some water right after this talk. But we can't just drink a gallon of water and, I'm good for the day. No, because we're constantly sweating, we're losing hydration, we need to constantly replenish. So especially in the heat, I need to basically give my plants water in the middle of the day so that they could transpire, like we perspire, plants transpire, bring up the cool water from the ground into their root zone that then cools them down, and then they basically evaporate out of their leaves to cool down. And so that's why, I gotta water more, and if I didn't walk around and make sure everything's all right every day, I wouldn't know what's going on. So I'd say walk your garden at least twice a day, inspect every plant, see what's going on so you can take immediate action if there are any problems. And then I want to encourage you guys, the summary, as I said, is grow a wide variety of colorful and deep colored vegetables. Add beneficial microbes in compost tea, add trace minerals including rock dust, foliar feed your plants, pay attention to your plants, and be grateful every day. And my websites are Growing Your Greens to watch my YouTube channels on gardening, OK Raw to learn about my healthy plant-based eating style, and I talk about the equipment that will allow you to eat more fruits and vegetables at my YouTube channel called Discount Juicers. And I think I'm out of time.
John and Wendy, thanks so much. Are you guys going to be able to take some questions offline?
Yeah, we can stand outside and take questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Let's hear it for John Kohler and Wendy Phan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I hope you guys had learned something from our talks. Let me know if you guys are any like new gardeners out there that are watching, or advanced gardeners. Anything you want to share with my viewers before we
Yeah,
close?
sure. I hope I really helped you guys out, taking your garden to the next level. So implement some of those strategies that I've shared with you guys. And if you guys want to learn more strategies, even go more in depth, be sure to check my channel at Growing Your Greens here on YouTube. Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, I hope, yeah, it's going to be a lot more videos out of Baker Creek. Make sure you check out those shorts and follow our feed on our social medias like Instagram and such. I will put the links down below. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.